Hello, I'm Catherine Corr.
And I'm Kimberly Corr.
And we're the owners of Pilates on 5th here in New York City and the creators of Pilates on 5th online. Today we'd like to talk about 7 habits of highly effective Pilates practitioners.
Yes.
So what we've done is we've taken Joseph Pilates' 6 main principles that he had, and then we're adding our 2 cents worth and adding one more to make it 7. So first
You'll like the 7.
Yes. Yeah. First is centering. So we all think of centering the core, but what we really also want to focus on is the fact that the abdominal sheath starts at the ribs and goes all the way down to the pubis symphysis. So you can't just think of pulling in your abs, you also think of closing the ribs, and that's where people are like, what do my ribs have to do with anything? Well, your abdominal muscles attach up to the ribs.
The external obliques come this way, and the internal obliques come this way. So you've got 4 layers, and so it's all crisscrossing. So internal obliques come from here and go up, external come down, so you really do have a whole band.
So Kimberly's going to lie on her tummy with her head this way, and just do the breaststroke. So we're going to show with the breaststroke because the breaststroke is clearly not an abdominal exercise. I think we can all agree it's not. But the concept of centering means that still you want to think that the movement is generating from the core. So just do a couple and do them correctly. Okay, yes. And then she's going to, oops, sorry, sweep around. So you want to have that idea that the core still seems like it's the center of the movement and it's not radiating from the peripheral joints. It's not, the movement is not generating from the fingertips, if you will. All right, thank you. That's all. All right. Next we have concentration. We want to be mindful of the way we're doing the exercises. We want to have deliberation in our movements. So for this, we're going to use side kicks.
Okay.
So Kimberly, pick a side. Doesn't matter to me.
I think it's easier for you.
Yep. So first, now, just do any old side kick. Don't think of any, yes. So you could be watching TV, never doing a Pilates class and do this, but this would not be Pilates because it's the mindfulness element is missing. What we're really focusing on here is keeping the torso nice and stable, the pelvis in neutral, and then the legs swinging like a pendulum. And the movement is smooth and controlled, which is next, controlled. So we want to be mindful of reaching through the toes. So just do it again, just don't put any energy in your foot. Right, so I always say, yeah, that's like fish foot. You don't want your foot to look like a dead fish on the end. Or same thing, we'll do hundreds later, but you want energy through the fingertips. So that's what we mean by mindfulness, and that's the concentration. You want to be thinking of the movements that you're doing nice and deliberate. Alrighty then, next is control. Control is also the concept of stability as well. So we're using a push-up for this example. Now, I'm going to have Kimberly do this on her knees just because I want her to demonstrate a couple of things incorrectly. And whenever you're demonstrating something incorrectly, always pick the easier version so you don't hurt yourself in the process. Yeah. So we often talk about stability, 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 but really the concept of control is what we mean because you don't want it to be so stable that it's rigid.
Right.
And I think we've all worked with people or seen people who just muscle through everything.
And also just think if you've gone to the ballet or any performing art, they're very much controlled, but there's no rigidity.
Right.
It's very fluid, but they're very controlled.
So just because we're going to talk about the shoulders, we're going to talk about the scapula. So Kimberly's going to get in her push-up position. So thank you. So she's going to let her sternum fall to the mat. Right. So we don't want that. Doesn't look like she's in control or that it's stable. So you really want to think that the shoulder blades are separating the back and you have a nice, they're lying flat on the rib cage. And then when you bend the elbows as well, you don't have to go super deep. This is not, you want to, they still have to glide. When you do a push-up, your shoulder blades can't just stay fixed together. They have to move a little bit, but you want it to be with control. You don't want it just to flop down and then flop up, and don't do that. Okay, no flopping. Thank you, no flopping. All right, next we have precision. So you want to do the exercises correctly. No top athlete, whether it be tennis, basketball, anything, got to the top of their sport by doing the exercises over and over again in the incorrect way. It just doesn't happen. So when your teacher gives you cues and says, do it this way, they're not just picking on you, there's a method to the madness.
And it's also not just about upholding choreography. There's a reason the choreography exists. It's not just about upholding the choreography. That's what separates Pilates as an exercise form from some contemporary dance.
Yes, right. So for this, we're going to use the 100, and we're actually going to use the 100 for the next one too, which is breath. So yes, no mic packs. So Kimberly's going to do the 100 a couple of ways incorrectly, and I'll tell you how I want you to do it incorrectly, so that you can see that you can go through the motions, but it doesn't. If it's not precise, she's not going to get anything out of it. So go ahead and bring your legs up into tabletop position. Yep, she's going to make a nice supported position, one at a time. And go ahead and stretch your legs out on the diagonal and curl your head and shoulders up. So don't just do any old movement with your arms and everything. Yeah, so that, and then don't stretch your feet so nicely. So right, now she could be doing this, and there's not going to be a lot of benefit gained from this. And I'm not going to have her lose her abdominal connection because with the weight of the legs. But you also don't want to be, can you press out against your rectus for a second? Right, you can't see it, but if you press out against your rectus abdominis instead of pulling your abs in, you're missing that deepest layer of the abdominal wall, which is the transversus abdominis. So now we're going to have Kimberly do it the beautiful, proper way, pulling in. So notice here that her abs are really, really flat. Her legs are stretching long, her energy in her fingertips, and then this is a precise movement. The technique is there. So now talking about the breath, do you mind doing a few more?
No.
So the breath will help facilitate the movement. With the purpose of the hundreds, we want to make sure that we can keep this transversus abdominis engaged while we're inhaling for 5 and exhaling for 5. And you can go ahead and rest your head down. Yep. So the breath exists to facilitate proper movement and to facilitate relaxation. And we're going to do another segment entirely on breath. But to the extent that it's doing that, great. If it's not, as long as they're breathing, it's good. But flip over to your tummy, pretty please. We're going to go into a swan dive now. There are some movements where it will make more sense to do an inhale or an exhale. So now but here are 2 arguments, and this is why sometimes the breath gets a little bit confusing. So it's more natural when we bend backwards to inhale. So go ahead and do it on an inhale first. So she's going to press up, and we have a lot of range of motion in our spine, so there's no problem here. But let's just say, don't hurt yourself, that she didn't have a lot of abdominal support and she pushed up in this position. You can really sink into the lower back here, and we wouldn't want that to happen. So in that case, go ahead and go back down. I would probably cue her to exhale to come up, and that way she keeps the abdominal support as she comes up and is more likely to keep that present and not to sink into the lower back there. And if you want to rest your back for a second, you can. So that's the breath. Next, we have flow. You want the movements to flow smoothly. We're not, I mentioned this earlier, we're not trying to muscle through everything, but we're also not trying to move too quickly. So we're going to do shoulder bridge for this one. Actually, I lied. We're going to do one leg circle. We'll do shoulder bridge next, just in case you're like, I really wanted to see shoulder bridge. So reach one leg up, actually reach the camera leg up to the ceiling, and she's going to stretch the other leg long. So with a nice flow, if you muscle through this, go ahead and muscle through it, so right, her pelvis is staying stable, which is the goal of the exercise, but I can see her gripping in her hip flexors just to make sure nothing is moving. Now do it completely, just flail.
Just flail?
Flail, yeah. So then if she goes too much and she makes it too big, then the pelvis is wobbling all over the place. So the goal is to find the happy medium, where there's a flow and there's, again, the precision. We're still upholding the precision, so just inhale and exhale around, where you're challenging that, but there's a fluidity to the movement, and it's not muscling through it, but it's also not just, wildly throwing your leg through space. Same applies with shoulder bridge. Go ahead and bend both knees and lift your hips up. Pick the leg of choice to do the shoulder bridge. We don't want to, I'm just going to get her top nice and neat since you're all looking at her. It doesn't matter which leg you reach up. You don't want to make this so slow that there's nothing happening. Like it's so slow and so deliberate. This is not really how shoulder bridge was designed to be done. It also wasn't designed to be done as a can-can. Just really, really fast, and just lifting and lowering and lifting. So again, there's a happy medium. You want that balance between using the muscles to move properly and to have the nice fluidity of movement. And that goes back with the whole precision idea and the concentration. You can see how all these principles layer with one another.
Build on each other.
Yes. All right, you can go ahead and sit up. And then finally, and I know that Kimberly has a lot to say about this as well, don't compete. This is not one of Joseph Pilates' 6 principles. The ones we did before were his 6 principles. Yeah. Number 7, don't compete.
Yeah, too often in our studio we see people looking at the person next to them on the mat.
Pilates is not a competitive sport for a reason.
Yeah, and everybody's body is different. Let's just pick open leg rocker is a good example of, given torso and leg length, some people will have an easier time with it, and those really long-legged people, even if they're super fit, will have a harder time because they've got a longer lever. And they're also, but when they reach their legs up, their legs will be like, 50 feet higher, which is sometimes some would be like, but that's not the point.
Right.
So.
We always say the gods of Pilates are fair. What makes exercises difficult for some people makes the same exercise easier, and then your body type could also make certain exercises more easy.
And not to mention that once you turn your head and start looking, your neck is out of alignment.
Yes, and on that note, your neck should never hurt. Let's just say your abdominals aren't as strong as you would like them to be. You want to make sure that if you get to the stage where you're doing anything and you're curled up here and your neck starts to hurt more than your abs, just bring your head down for a minute.
Rest for a little bit.
Yeah, that is totally okay.
Yes, so again, don't compete either with others or with yourself. Like if something hurts and you're at home doing a workout, why not stop?
Yeah.
No one will know.
Yep. And that's, yep, that's our 2 cents worth on Joseph Pilates' 6 principles plus the one we added with the don't compete.